Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on the components of blood. In our last lesson, we learned how to measure pulse rate and blood pressure. We discussed some ways in which pulse rate is affected, and we identified the procedure for properly measuring blood pressure. Today, we study the components of blood. We will identify and name the components of blood and describe their functions. Let us begin right away. Blood makes up about 7 to 8% of the weight of the human body. In adults, this equals 4 to 5 liters of blood. Blood is the fluid that carries out the critical functions of transporting oxygen and nutrients to our cells and gets rid of carbon dioxide and other waste products. In addition, blood plays a vital role in our immune system and in maintaining a relatively constant body temperature. Blood is a highly specialized tissue composed of many different components. 4 of the most important components are red cells, white cells, platelets, and plasma. We will study these components throughout this lesson. Plasma carries red cells, white cells, and platelets throughout the body. It is a pale yellow liquid that transports the many substances. Waste products that are produced throughout the body are carried by the plasma to the organs that dispose of them. For example, carbon dioxide, which is produced in the organs of the body, is carried in the plasma back to the lungs. Plasma contains thousands of different chemicals, including blood-clotting substances, sugars, lipids, vitamins, hormones, and antibodies. Red blood cells are one of the main components in your blood. They transport oxygen from the lungs to all the cells in the body, and they carry away carbon dioxide. Red blood cells are produced continuously in the bone marrow from stem cells at a rate of 2 to 3 million per second. Once red blood cells mature, they lose their nucleus. This makes room to carry more substances. Since the cells do not have a nucleus, they only live for about 100 days in the body, so they are continuously being replaced. Red blood cells are thin-walled with a large surface area. They are also full of a substance called hemoglobin. This makes them well equipped to transport substances. Hemoglobin molecules are red, gas-transporting protein molecules folded around 4 iron atoms. They make up about 95% of a red blood cell. In highly oxygenated areas, like the lungs, hemoglobin reacts with oxygen and a bright red product called oxyhemoglobin is formed. In areas where oxygen is low, such as the cells and organs of the body, the reaction is reversed. The oxyhemoglobin splits, forming purple-red hemoglobin and oxygen molecules. The oxygen molecules pass into the cells that require them by diffusion. Hemoglobin's reverse reaction is the process that maintains life by carrying oxygen to the areas where it is needed. Students, to review what we have just learned, please determine if the following statements are true or false.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up! Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, class. How was that activity? Let us go through the answers together. Plasma does not only carry red blood cells. Plasma carries red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Blood does transfer waste products out of cells. Red blood cells are not produced in the lungs. Red blood cells are produced in bone marrow from stem cells. Red blood cells do lose their nucleus to make room to carry more hemoglobin. When hemoglobin reacts with oxygen, oxyhemoglobin is formed. As we learned earlier, hemoglobin is made from iron, so it is important to include iron in your diet. Without it, your body will be deficient of red blood cells, and you could become anemic. Anemia is a condition that makes people pale and weak because they cannot carry enough oxygen around their body. White blood cells are another important component. There are fewer of them in the body, and they are much bigger than red blood cells. White blood cells are the body's defense system against foreign microbes. Some white blood cells form antibodies to fight off microbes, while others absorb invading bacteria. Platelets are cell fragments without nuclei that work with blood-clotting substances at the sites of wounds. Platelets do this by adhering to the walls of blood vessels, thereby blocking the rupture in the vascular wall. They also can release coagulating chemicals, which cause clots to form in the blood, which can plug narrowed blood vessels. There are more than a dozen types of blood clotting factors and platelets that need to interact in the blood clotting process. Platelets help fight infections by releasing proteins. Students, for our last activity, please describe the function of the 4 components of the blood that we learned about today.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello once again. Let us review your answers. Plasma is the liquid that transports substances within the blood. Red blood cells transport oxygen from the lungs to all of the living tissues of the body and carry away carbon dioxide. White blood cells work to fight off invading microbes and rid cells of bacteria. Platelets are cell fragments that help with blood clotting at the site of wounds. We have come to the end of our lesson. Today, we studied the components of blood. We learned about plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. We also discussed the function of hemoglobin. Until next lesson, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.